This episode of the All About Pigeons podcast is brought to you by the Rare Breeds Pigeon Club, an international organization dedicated to preserving and promoting the world's rarest pigeon breed. The RBPC works to protect genetic diversity, support fanciers around the globe, and keep these unique breeds from fading into history. You can learn more about their mission, explore their full rare breed list, or become a member by visiting rarepigeons.net. Check them out and help support the future of rare pigeons worldwide. Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Phillip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds and this ancient hobby. Today, we're going to be talking all about the breed Damascenes. We have Cadin Jaessing with us. He's a member of the NPA, member of the Rare Breeds Club. He's also the district director of the Lahore Club, and he also has a master breeder of the Damascenes through the Rare Breeds Club, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, Cadin, thanks so much for coming on and talking with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
How did you get started with this breed, and how long have you been breeding Damascenes for?
So I've been breeding Damascenes for a long time. I would say probably it was one of my first or second breeds. So I've been breeding them for about 12 years now. I got some of my first ones from a guy up in Michigan. Scott. It was kind of a project that he was working on, and I took it over. So that's kind of what I've been working on for a while.
What was it that kind of pulled you into that breed?
I really like the contrast between the white of the bird and the black bars. Just the white and black contrast and how the bird looks really icy and clean. Is kind of what drawn me in. And there was also just the red eyes on the bird was something I thought was really attractive.
I'm gonna take a wild shot here. Is the name Damascene part of its own origin story? Is that where it's actually coming out of?
Yeah. So the Damascene origin is a little kind of all over the place. There's no really certain area where they're from, but most people, what they've heard is what they came out of that they came out of Damascus. Over in Syria, there was a time to where they thought they originated out of Turkey and even maybe some Persian descent as well.
How far back does that go?
It was noted that they went as far back as the 1600s. I'm sure the breed is a lot older than that because there's so many breeds that exhibit the white ice coloration, and it took a long time for those birds to be created to put those colors on top of them. So you've got multiple breeds with the ice modifier, which are like the Italian owls. There's the Rodani. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's basically an ice Italian owl. And it's interesting because they judge the Italian owls. They separate them overseas, and they kind of judge them as their own breed. And then you've got your ice pigeons, of course. There's also Chinese nasal tuft and another Chinese breed. It was a racing homer called the Tun Pack. Again, sorry for pronunciation, but the Tun Pak was like a ice colored racing homer. It was also a breed in the 1800s called the powdered owl, and that was descent of like it's when you crossed an English owl onto a Damascene, and then you would show the crosses. So you had to have a Damascene and an English owl to produce these powdered owls, and I think it's like having like a het ice. So it was only one dose of the gene instead of two, like the Damascenes have. So I thought that was really interesting.
So it's always been used as like a way to move colors around, and it's always been more of a show bird in that way.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it definitely was turned into a show bird. I think the original birds themselves in Damascus were more flying birds. They were flown in big flocks and still are today. I know a lot of people that still have the original Damascenes, which overseas, so they called them the Boos in the Middle East, Booz. Then they went up into Europe, and Europe kind of did their own thing with them, kind of refined them, made them a little bigger, bigger heads, made them more of a show breed, I would say. Then eventually we got them. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a year as to when they got here, but that's kind of what I dug up on the history. People still do fly some of their Damascenes around here in the United States. They're more the flying birds are smaller and they've got more of a flat head, almost kind of resembling that it, the booze had kind of a plateau kind of head on them, and the English birds had more of a rounded head, and I would say the Americans have a rounded head as well. It says in the standard to have a slight flatness to the top, but not a completely flat head.
It is considered a rare breed, correct?
Yep, this is considered a rare breed. They're not as prevalent as some of the other birds. They're making a slow comeback, I think, to the area.
Is it more like here in the States that it's more rare? Like you said that there are other places in the Middle East that people are actually flying these. Is that a more popular breed over there?
Yeah, I would say they have more the booze and Damascenes over there. We do have some people that have imported birds. I know there was a guy down south who imported some birds out of Holland. Those were the European type. We had there was a guy in California who imported some booze out of Syria. I know some people kind of keep the booze type. People who like to fly them usually keep the booze or the flying types. And I know for a while they were showing booze.
So what's their temperament like being like still pretty close to the flying type? Are they pretty wily?
I would say that they're a pretty docile pigeon. They're not as flighty as some of the other, I would say, like color breeds. When you get into your starlings and Swabians, archangels, those are pretty wild birds, I would say. But the Damascenes are a little more, they're a little more docile. They're not gonna freak out when you're walking into the loft or anything like that. But yeah, I think, I mean, I've worked with mine for a while, so they're more accustomed to me coming in and out of the loft.
And what does your loft setup look like with these Damascenes in there?
So with the Damascenes, I have them outside in a more of a racer type coop so that they can go outside. It's got wings on both sides of the building so that they can go outside and get some sunlight. And I found that that's really important for the Damascenes. I used to keep them in a more enclosed part of a barn, and they didn't have outside access. And I was noticing that the sears around the eye were kind of pale or tan. I was talking to some breeders that have had some Damascenes, and they said that their birds did a lot better when they were outside and having access to the sun because it darkened up the sears around their eyes. So I
Oh,
moved them
wow.
outside and put them in that new loft. So now they got access to the sun, and it darkened up their eye sears a lot. Of course, it's something you can breed for, have a little more sear or a little darker, but I mean, it was night and day when I once I moved them outside.
Wow, that's really interesting. I haven't heard that before. I have heard compared to like for breeding, right, to get certain vitamins from the sun and stuff like that, that your birds would do better if they're in a
Mm-hmm.
loft that has an aviary getting sunlight and stuff. But that's really interesting with the icers though.
Yeah, yep,
Uh,
absolutely. That was my Damascenes have been outside ever since I kind of figured that out. So
what's your climate like as far as hots and colds go?
I'm in Ohio, so it's fairly hot in the summertime and it gets pretty cold in the wintertime. So in the winter, I do move my birds into a different loft. They still have outside access, but once it gets really cold, I start shutting the window so that they can't get outside into their fly pen just because it's so cold. And if I'm trying to hatch out, young ones, trying to get an early start on my breeding season, then I got to keep it a certain temperature in the loft so the eggs aren't freezing on me.
What kind of floor are you using in that racing style loft that you have them in?
The floor is just wood. I do scatter some substrate on there sometimes, but honestly, I find it a lot better just to go in and scrape scrape the poop and stuff off the shelves and the floor, and it just creates less work that I have to do. And I find that the floor gets pretty gross if you keep different substrates in it. So most of the time it's bare. I think for breeding season, I'll take some straw around there and put it on the bottom just because they love to build their nests with it. But that's all the really substrate I use.
And what about some of your loft management? So you're not flying these birds, right? They're just in that loft area.
Right. I used to fly them, but we have so many hawks in the area that it was just like we've got Coopers and sharp shinned hawks, red tails, and I don't think a red tail could catch them, but the Coopers are definitely pretty prevalent. So, but that's why I started locking them up, and I find that the birds are in a little better condition when they just stay in better condition instead of being out and flying around like that. I know some breeders say that when they fly their birds, their eyes get to be a little more red due to the blood vessels in the eyes. And I don't know, there might be some truth to that. I don't know if some Homer people could chime in on that one, but I know people have dragoons, and I would say those have a really dark red eye, but they're not flying their dragoons. So
Yeah, that's interesting. So since you're not flying your birds, do you do any kind of deworming at all with them before breeding season or?
yeah, absolutely. I have some ecto drops that I put on behind their neck. So I just do two drops behind the neck on the skin, and then there's also a ecto endo pill that I could give them internally. So I just pop them a pill, and that way I know that the bird got their treatment. I found that it is a lot better to personally pick up your bird, put the pill, give them the pill personally because you know that you gave them the pill. Whereas if you're trying to treat a whole loft or put something in the water for treatment, it's kind of like maybe the birds drank it, maybe the birds didn't that day, or
Yeah.
it's more concrete, I would say.
What was that brand again?
It was like an ecto endo type of.
Is that a dewormer or is that for lice and mites or?
It's a dewormer and
Oh, okay.
internal parasites.
Oh, okay. And you do show your birds too. So are you vaccinating for anything in particular?
Yep, I vaccinate for PMV. I know some other people that vaccinate for more, but what I found, I mean, I found that PMV was something that I had a problem with when I was younger showing birds, and I came back from a show and I had a whole flock wiped out from PMV before. So I mean, I think as time goes on, I'll probably start vaccinating for more things.
When you're breeding your birds and you're going for colors and markings, you're probably at a pretty early stage able to tell if a bird's going to have good colors and good markings. Do you have separate areas that you put them in, maybe to give them more space for conditioning before a show? And can you walk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, so with the Damascenes, it's a little tricky because I would say they're kind of like archangels, not quite extreme, but when you raise archangels, the first you hatch them out, and as they're growing, they don't look like they don't molt right away into that beautiful coloration. The black wings and the gold or the bronze. It's more of like a mixture of the color, and then they kind of once they go through that molt, then they kind of come into their true color. So it's hard to cull the offspring early on because they're going to have to go through that molt so that you can see the coloration of the feathers. I've had the babies hatch out where they're kind of dark, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. They're darker in the chest or darker in the back, and it just by the end of the year, I don't have any dark birds in the loft, so I'm assuming it's just kind of a stage that they have to go through, and I have to wait till fall to really see what I'm going to keep or get rid of.
So you got to go through at least one molt then before you even can tell.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. I've had birds that have some like white almost finch markings on their flight feathers. And then once they go through a molt and they get a little older, then those go away. And if they stay in the bird, then that's a bird that I would call, because I want nice black primary feathers.
What else will change, like on their second or even third molt? Will they continue to change in colors, or
I would say the birds tend to get lighter as they age. It doesn't completely make the bird unshowable, but you have to just kind of be cautious about when are they getting to the point of this is too much ice color. I need to, kind of go back and reconsider some of my breedings. I would say right now it's not an issue for me, but it's something I'm keeping in the back of my head just to make sure that it's not getting out of hand because I do want to be able to show older birds.
what are the colors and patterns that come in this breed?
So right now, the only accepted color is ice, and that would be the ice modifier on top of a blue base, and they come in bar and check. Those are the only two accepted colors. The check was just recently added, and I think in the 2023 revision of the standard. So that was new. There's not a standard picture for the check pattern, but there is a standard picture for the bar pattern. And as far as color goes, there are other colors that are in the breed. There are ash red based birds, and I've also seen blue based birds with indigo on them as well. I know there are some other modifications out there. I've seen them in like cream bar, and I've seen crested varieties, but right now the only ones accepted are the blue bar, blue check.
Wow, so you even seen ones with crest, huh?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of them in the Middle East. I've never seen one in the States, but yeah, I have seen pictures of crested ones, peak crested, and almost a shell crest on one.
Can you give us a breakdown of the how the points are judged on this bird?
Yeah, absolutely. So the most points would go towards the head and gullet. So you want that nice rounded head with that slight flat top to it. You want a nice gullet on the bird, and then the second highest points would go towards the color. So head and gullet get 25, color gets 20 points. So you want that nice contrast of the icy color and the black bars. So you want your bars to be as black as they can be, so that their wing bars and their tail bar. And you also want their flights to be dark. And you want the rest of the bird to be white from the top of the head to the end of the tail. And you run into a couple issues there when you're trying to put light and dark together. You're going to get birds that are really light, or you're going to get birds that are really dark and don't have the right icing. They might have really nice black bars, but the icing color isn't quite right. So it's kind of like I keep light birds and dark birds in the loft. And when I say light and dark, the coloration isn't like night and day, but it's just some of the birds are slightly darker, and some of the birds are slightly lighter. So it's a very, very minimal, but I do have to kind of breed those two together to get what I'm looking for.
Is that what you would say one of the most common faults you see at the shows with this breed is in the color and the light and darkness?
I would say so. A lot of birds will have a blue tail where the rump starts. It would be like night and day, ice towards the front, and then blue tail, like you would see on a blue bar. So I've seen birds like that before. I think we're making some progress as far as how the blue has kind of gotten out of the birds, but every once in a while you'll get a blue tail that pops up, and that would be a call for me.
How are they as far as breeding goes and raising their young? Are they pretty prolific, or do they require some assistance through fostering?
The breeding is actually they breed very well. They raise their own chicks. They're supposed to. I mean, the breed has a shorter beak, but I've had no problems with them raising their own young. I barely use fosters on them. I just kind of let them do their own thing.
They breed good and they're a pretty tame breed compared to other color breeds. I mean, would you say that this is something that beginners should get into, or more of an intermediate style breed to start trying out for people?
I think it's definitely a great bird for beginners, as far as how prolific they are. I think someone who is really interested in color would find them to be maybe the right fit for them, so that they can kind of tweak the coloration and be more on top of that. But as far as raising young ones and getting some young birds banded, I think they're a great starter bird.
Has there ever been any books specifically written on this breed?
Not that I could find. I reference the pigeon from Levi, but they have a couple paragraphs in there about the breed and some origin. But I found that there's only just like little snippets that you find in some books like that. Yeah, maybe I need to write maybe I need to write a Damascene book.
Yeah, if you've already got all this collective knowledge from other places, put it in one place, let's get that book out there.
Yeah,
You are starting up the national club for this breed also.
yeah, correct.
Can you talk a little bit about that and, what's your goal with this club?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am pretty much starting this breed club from scratch. I couldn't find anything, any club that was maybe made beforehand. I tried digging up some info on that and couldn't find anything else. So we're starting from scratch and starting to pull birds out of the rare breeds to start our own club. Some of the smaller shows, we're going to have our very first meet in Fremont, Ohio, and that'll be in January, January 3rd. So we're expected to have about 20 birds and three exhibitors. And I have some other exhibitors down south that are interested in showing. And so yeah, we're just kind of starting from scratch and building the club as we go.
Another success story through the Rare Breeds Club where it kind of snowballs in that club and then it can. I know the American Zitter Hall club just kind of is getting up and going right now, and that was a lot of breeders through the Rare Breeds Club too, and now this one
Yeah,
too. That's pretty awesome.
I would say, yeah, as I'm a certified rare breeds judge, and I love the rare breeds. It's a very difficult club to judge in because you're comparing apples to oranges, and you only have a couple birds to look at, of each breed. And there's a lot of clubs that were formed due to leaving the rare breeds. I mean, like the classic club, they pulled out dragoons and English carriers, scandaroons, barbs, and things like that, and the zitter halls, of course. It was good to get into the shows, and I would show probably six or seven birds, and people would come up to me and want some birds, and I would always bring extras just in case to try and promote the breed a little more. I just found out that that was a good way to get exhibitors interested, was just to not maybe take them to the sale section, because people are just going to buy the birds because they like them, or they want to fly them or something. And I'm like, well, these are show damascenes and these are to be shown. They fly decent, but for what I'm trying to go for in building a club, I would like some exhibitors to start showing.
Yeah. So if someone's interested in breeding these and joining the national club, how would they go about doing that?
You can definitely contact me. I'm on Facebook at Cadin Jaessing. Reach out to my email as well. I can get you started in the Damascenes, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I'll definitely put a link to your contact info at the bottom of this episode. So if anybody is interested, it's a beautiful bird and the colors are really striking as well. So I think, like
Yeah,
you said, that's a good point. If someone's really interested in the color side of it, this would be a really fun breed to get into for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And if you're interested in more of the flying type, or there's a lot of different types of Damascenes. I raise the American Damascenes, but there are different kind of categories of the Damascenes. There's the European Damascene, and so they're more of a heavier set bird. I would say more of like a show homer. They've got more body to them. And then there's the Americans, which I raise. They're a little more slender. You also have a flying type, which would be like the booze, and the booze originated out of Damascus, Syria, like I stated before. They they've got more of a flat head. They're more of a flying type bird. I do have contacts that have those other breeds as well. As a club right now, we're accepting any kind of Damascene. So if you have European Damascenes or the flying type or booths, we would be more than happy to accommodate those birds into our new club as well. We're just kind of taking it step by step and seeing where it takes us.
Thanks so much for coming on. And if anybody's interested, check the links down at the bottom and he'll get you set up. It's been a real pleasure learning about this breed, Cadin. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for giving pigeons a platform and really diving into each breed and the flying birds as well, the rollers and homers. It's been an honor listening to you guys talk about it, and I'm happy to be here.
This episode of the All About Pigeons podcast is brought to you by the Rare Breeds Pigeon Club, an international organization dedicated to preserving and promoting the world's rarest pigeon breed. The RBPC works to protect genetic diversity, support fanciers around the globe, and keep these unique breeds from fading into history. You can learn more about their mission, explore their full rare breed list, or become a member by visiting rarepigeons.net. Check them out and help support the future of rare pigeons worldwide. Thank you for listening to another ad-free, listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. If you like the show and want to help it keep it going, as well as supporting your other pigeon promotional work, head to the website PigeonPod, that's pigeonpod.com. You can make a donation there. If you can't make a donation today, support the show by giving us a good 5-star review wherever you're listening to us at right now. That really helps the podcast and helps the algorithm get us out there to other people who might not know about Pigeon Podcast. If you have any episode requests, upcoming pigeon shows, competition results, or you want to be a guest on the show and just talk about some pigeons, or you have a shout out for a friend, shoot us an email at staff@pigeonpod.com. Thanks again for listening. We really appreciate your support. And remember, together the hobby thrives. Support each other and enjoy your pigeons.